Good morning, everybody. I did kind of cruise through some of the poetry videos already as they were coming in and being posted yesterday, and I was really pleased with the content. I think everybody did a pretty good job with this, and I think you learned something. I know that we had some struggles towards the end of the day um, with some getting their video uploaded into YouTube, but all we really did in this project is we made ourselves smarter. We made ourselves smarter with poetry and also with the technology that's available in the world. So, but I will be getting to those as quickly as I can over the next week and a half. We're just a little beyond the halfway point, so I look forward to all of those. Now, I can't let you rest. Okay, I know that that was kind of a struggle for the last project, but I want to go ahead and get you started on the next project for the course. We only have two more left. The one that I'm about to share with you, and then finally the capstone essay, which most of you will find will not be all that challenging. But this one is probably my favorite. It's a struggle for me between poetry or this project, but this project is always a lot of fun. I always get great quality in this, and this one is coming at really kind of the right time of the year. It is the picture book project, and students usually find this one to be pretty challenging, and it's a lot of fun. Now, the picture book project will be due on the 19th of November, which is that Sunday night before Thanksgiving. So it'll all be in, and you should be able to enjoy your Thanksgiving break without my bothering you with any kind of projects. It'll be due on the 19th of November, 11:59, the usual. And once again, you will create your picture book, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. You'll create your picture book, and then you're going to post it or a link to it, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, into the discussion board forum that's provided for the picture book project. Now, as you've noticed, I like people to see what we do. I think if we allow people to see what we do, we end up being a little more confident after a while in the things that we do produce. And I think it's important that we also provide an example to one another of what each of us is doing so that we all get better, we all get stronger. And that's one thing that I learned as educators. Sometimes educators are not all that excited about sharing what they do or allowing others to watch them. I guess maybe by virtue of working for the government for 30 some odd years that I've always had somebody over my shoulder, so it really doesn't bother me to share what I write or the things that I do in class with others. So I like to promote that, because if we all work together, we tend to be stronger educators. We just tend to be stronger in society in general. So here's the project. Worth 100 points. And I will grade it from the discussion board, so don't worry about putting it anywhere else. As long as you get your book or your link in the discussion board, we'll grade it from there. Now, it says, have you ever dreamed of being a best-selling author, or is writing a book on your bucket list? Now, for some of us, that seems like a really outlandish idea, but I've learned over the last 10 years, I've kind of placed writing a real book on my own bucket list. I've started many times, but I seem to get caught up in other things. But maybe it's one of yours, and maybe possibly it being a children's book. Now, that doesn't make it a lesser book. That just makes it more of a challenge, because there are so many children's books on the market, but you can produce one just as well as Vjorst or any of those other Syndac that we worked with in the course. Now, there is no time like the present to live your dream of writing the next critically acclaimed children's book. During the term, the students have been exposed to various literary and poetic elements and graphic techniques that are enshrined in children's literature. Using what you have learned in the course, create an original children's literary work. The student will write and illustrate a children's picture book. Now, don't let this be intimidating to you, because it's a lot of fun. And I say this is coming at the right time of the year, because last fall when I introduced this project, many of the students I had children. So, and it being close to Christmas, they produce this, and if you use some of the resources that I'm going to give you, you can actually have this book printed and bound, and you can give it away for Christmas as well as getting your grade for it. So, but this project is a lot of fun, so just try to embrace it. Now, this is a creative assignment, and you may draw from the elements of other like material, but you should refrain from duplicating in any manner or fashion. So in other words, plagiarism works here too, even in children's books. Now, this is an opportunity to demonstrate your creativity and mastery of the course information and material. So this is what your picture book has to have. In crafting your picture book, consider and ensure the following: that you have a well-defined character or characters. If you have multiple, make sure that they're not wishy-washy, that they're at least somewhat plausible. Okay? Children tend to be a little more forgiving than adults, but make sure that they are well defined. That you have a plot, and you got to have a conflict. You have to have both in order to have a story. First of all, the plot is what the story is really about, and the conflict is this problem that our protagonist has to solve. So make sure you have that. Make sure that you're writing your book in a context and that it has a setting. Now, that setting can be very fairy tale-like, where it's kind of ambiguous, doesn't really matter where it's at or when it is. Or you can define it to be very local with that local kind of color. I do see lots of those kinds of books. But make sure you have a context and make sure that you have some kind of a setting. Now, when you are writing your book, now this is always a challenge for academic writers and even younger writers, is that we have a hard time with points of view. We make sure that you maintain your point of view. Now, in other words, that doesn't mean maintain your opinion. That means maintain the narrator's point of view. So, in other words, if you start the book in first person, end up in first person. If you start in the third person, make sure you end up in the third person. And remember, there are different kinds of third-person narrators. We have objective narrators. We have omniscient narrators. We have some that are limited in their omniscience. So make sure that you maintain throughout your book so that your reader is not confused by your narrator. Make sure that you have a theme or a motif that is relevant and that will promote some kind of message. Now, that could be about values, could be about right behavior, social responsibility, something as simple as tying your shoes, learning. Okay, so make sure that it includes all that. And last but not least, ensure that it is original, that it belongs to you. Now, the minimum requirements for the scope of your children's book, okay, your picture book, is that first of all, you got to have a cover. All right, every book has a cover so that we can judge it, right? So you need to have a cover. Make sure that it's attractive because that's marketing. And you can't really expect a young person to read a book unless there's something about the title, about the cover that hooks them, whether it's the picture, whether it's a catchy title, something like that, but you need a cover. The next page that you need to have in your book is you need to have an About the Author page. So you're going to do a little bio about yourself. Typically, these work out better if they are in the third person, okay? So make sure that you have a picture, an author's page in there with your bio. Now, the next page, you need to have a dedication page. Who are you dedicating this work to? Now, if you remember many of the pieces that you've read, our writer, our author usually dedicates this to somebody, a mother, a child, some influential individual in their life. So make sure you include a dedication page. Now, we're not talking writing gobs and gobs of text. Just make sure that you identify who you're writing this for. Now you should have, in addition to those three things already, you need to have 24 pages of text and graphics. Now, remember, this may seem like, oh my God, that's a 24-page paper, but it's not. There may be a sentence or two, maybe 4 or 5. Depending on the age level that you're writing your picture book to. So when you link together these graphics, these pictures with the text, we have this really huge story. So 24 pages of text and graphics. Now here's a racing tip for you. Make sure that you keep your graphics throughout your work consistent. Make them congruent with your text. So if your text is talking about monsters, you should have a monster type picture or illustration or graphic. So make sure that you keep that. But all of your pictures, now many of us will go to the open web and just pull pictures here and there to illustrate our books. That's perfectly fine. But the quality of your book, because you'd like to have something that you could eventually kind of publish, okay? So make sure your graphics are consistent throughout, same style throughout your book. Now, I have some students who actually draw their own illustrations. And I've even had some that were kind of very stickish, but it worked, okay, along with the text that they had. But they were very consistent, so make sure that you do that. And make sure that you have the back cover with a short abstract. Now, the reason for having this short abstract on the back of the book cover is that the people with the money who are buying these books are always going to be parents. Now, as parents, we don't just buy books because our kid's screaming in the grocery line. We buy these books in hopes that we are going to teach them something, that they're going to learn something. So this abstract becomes very important on the back of the book, because we look at the cover, and we all still do this, like this book here, the grant writing book. I look at the cover, it's kind of pleasing, but then I turn it over to the back, because on the back it's going to give me just a little bit more information. So you want to write a very, very, very short abstract. We're not talking the academic 200-word abstract. We're talking about something that's very short, sweet, that tells the viewer of the abstract exactly what this book is about. So make sure that you have that. So altogether, you have quite a bit of material to place into your book. Now, you should follow the writing process, of course, in outlining, writing, and storyboarding your book. You need to spend some time in trying to manage illustrations and make those things work in planning your book. Now, I will tell you there are lots and lots of resources on the open web in order to put together a children's book. There are a couple of them that I've listed here on the assignment sheet, mystorybook.com and storyjumper.com. They have illustrations, they have all the tools for different fonts to be able to construct your story. So those things are fair game. You can use these, and there are many others. You just have to kind of go out there and do a little research and do a little digging. Now, these are great because you can produce something that looks really, really high quality. And like I said before, you can also pay a few bucks and have them printed and, pass them out to your children or your friends' children or whatever, and they work out really well. But for these, you wouldn't necessarily be putting this in the discussion board. You'd be putting a link to your work. Now, the thing is, when you put this just like the YouTube video, you got to make sure that it's open so that we can all see it. So you can just put the link in the discussion board for this. Now, there are many others that are also free. And for those of you who don't want to do that, who want to prefer using the Microsoft Suite, you can use Word, you can use PowerPoint, you can use Publisher, you can use any of those programs. They will be sufficient for the project because we're just producing the book. And if you were going to produce a book and send it to a publisher, this is kind of the format in which you would do it. So it's entirely up to you. Of course, the quality does count in this, because you're trying to come up with a finished product that is publishable. That doesn't mean that everything that we print and write up front is going to be publishable without some work, but the quality does kind of count in the project. Regardless of the software, application, or program you choose, we have to make sure that we can all see it. All 29 of us need to be able to see this. So consider that, and consider what the others are going to be looking at and reading when you kind of put it up in the discussion board. So again, in keeping with all our course projects, the sky's the limit here. I want you to exercise all the academic freedom that you have and creativity to produce something that's very, very high quality, something that you could be very, very proud of. And the goal should always be to produce an original and creative work, okay? And that's really about it for me. So I will be trying to get to your poetry analysis and your poetry readings this week sometime so that I can have those grades back to you. And as I said before, we're starting on the second half of the course. Plenty of time for us all to finish strong. I hope you enjoy this project. And when we get a little further along, because the last project, which is the capstone essay for the course, I'll get that out a little earlier. I won't wait quite till this one closes so that you can start planning on that. I don't want to give it to you too early because then it feels like you've got all this work to do. I will say also about the discussion boards, extremely pleased with the quality of those and the amount of work that you're putting into them. I know a course, an online course where you're asked to do something over and over again is kind of uncommon. But one thing is I want to make sure that you walk away from this course with a really good understanding of at least the material we looked at, but kind of where to go with other materials as you explore them to use them in your classrooms. So I hope you have a really great week. If you need anything, as usual, you can call, you can come by, or you can email, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. But you guys have a great week, and I will talk to you again soon.